Imagine the universe not as empty space but as an ocean of invisible structure, a fabric woven from fields and information. Every particle vibrates with a set of possibilities, every atom hums with history. Your nervous system is one such field weaver, billions of neurons, each carrying electrical whispers, synchronizing into rhythms that rise and fall like tides. Thought is not a ghost, it is a measurable choreography, voltages, neurochemistry, and timing. When these patterns repeat with emotion and attention, they imprint. First they imprint the brain itself through plasticity, then the body through habit, and then the world through behavior. The environment answers back, reflecting and amplifying what you steadily practice. In this sense, the field remembers, not as a mystical ledger kept by remote forces, but as a universe where information persists in patterns, synapses strengthened, hormones tuned, actions taken, signals emitted, traces left in people, places, and networks of matter and meaning. Hold a single thought lightly and it flickers. Hold it with coherent breath, with posture that says, awake, with a body not flooded by stress, and the pattern becomes stable. Neurons fire together and wire together, theta waves gate synapses, gamma bursts bind features into a whole, the heart's variability becomes more ordered, handing the brain a calmer signal, the immune system reads this calmer signal and changes its tone, attention stops scattering and starts sculpting. What you repeatedly rehearse in the theater of imagination does not remain only in imagination, because rehearsal is neural activity, and neural activity reshapes tissue. You become the stable attractor in the sea of noise, a basin into which similar experiences are more likely to fall. This is how intentions harden into probabilities, not by bending physics with wishful thinking, but by aligning physiology, perception, and action so that the world you notice and the choices you make keep pointing in the same direction. The word memory usually suggests a diary in the brain, but memory is broader. Footprints in snow are memory, ruts in a road are memory, scar tissue is memory, the way sunlight warms rock is memory of exposure, the extracellular matrix remembers tension, gene expression carries a record of chronic signals, even the photons released from distant stars are messages in transit, a sky-wide archive of events already happened. Decoherence spreads information into the environment so thoroughly that the past becomes etched everywhere. You live inside an archive that you help write, page by page, with each micro-decision that sets the next condition for your nervous system and the space around it. You are not merely reading reality, you are updating it by participating. Emotions are not just colors on experience, they are amplifiers. Anxiety tunes the brain toward threat, more edges, more alarms, more near misses. Gratitude and awe widen the perceptual field, more context, more nuance, more solutions hiding in plain sight. Breathe slowly and evenly and your baroreceptors send a different message upstream. Your insula, the map of your interior, paints a calmer canvas, the prefrontal cortex regains leadership, the amygdala's sirens quiet. In that quieter room, a chosen thought can gather strength without being drowned out by the body's emergency broadcast system. What feels like the universe listening is often the physics of resonance within you, oscillators, neurons, heart, breath, sliding into phase so signals propagate cleanly instead of canceling each other out. Coherence is not magic, it is signal fidelity. And when the signal is clean, the learning sticks. Call the field 0 point or vacuum or simply the totality of relationships, what matters is that you stand at a crossing of countless flows. Social flows, other minds adjusting to your posture, voice, and patterns. Digital flows, words you release that travel further than you imagine. Biological flows, proteins sculpted by states you habitually occupy. Behavioral flows, small actions that compound as surely as gravity curves a trajectory. If your thinking is a stone, the ripples touch shores you cannot see. Say the same sentence with a different inner state and the meaning changes, send the same email after coherent breathing and it lands softer, enter the same room with a different nervous system and the room reorganizes around you. The field remembers because people remember, tissues remember, sensors remember, and matter keeps the score of forces applied to it. Mental rehearsal is not daydreaming when you assign it sensory detail. Imagine meeting the future with specificity, textures, temperatures, the weight of a handshake, the smell of rain on concrete, the graph on the screen turning upward slowly, the sound of your own voice confident but unforced. The brain codes rich rehearsal similarly to action, mirror-like networks light up, motor programs refine, prediction errors shrink. You are writing a template. When reality arrives with compatible features, the brain says, "I know this," and moves smoothly instead of hesitating. This is how a future becomes familiar before it happens, by training the recognition circuits to greet it rather than reject it. Skepticism is healthy, keep it. You do not need to believe in metaphysical broadcasting to make use of the ordinary miracles already available: neuroplasticity that thickens useful pathways, autonomic flex that lets you switch gears instead of skidding, attention that chooses what to amplify, language that encodes and transmits state, communities that echo your signals back, environments that either cue relapse or cue renewal. There is nothing unscientific about repeatedly occupying the configuration of body and mind that most likely yields the future you want. That is engineering, and the lab is your day. The door into this laboratory is simple. Sit with your spine like a tuning fork and notice breath without forcing it, then gently guide it to a steady cadence. Let sensation expand from the nostrils to the ribs to the belly, a slow wave that teaches the heart to vary with grace. Name the state you intend to practice today in one sentence so clear a child could say it. Do not argue with the old state, starve it by feeding the new one with images, sounds, and micro-actions. Choose one gesture, a relaxed jaw before speaking, shoulders unhooked, gaze that softens the periphery, and let it be the metronome. Pair that gesture with a thought worth remembering and an emotion strong enough to tag the memory trace. Repeat until the body recognizes the pattern faster than the mind can narrate it. This is not pretending, this is installation. If the field is a sea of possibilities, attention is the rudder and emotion the wind. Most days you will tack rather than sprint. But tacking is movement. Each time you turn a reaction into a response, you alter the trajectory by a degree, and degrees accumulate. Each time you pause before the reflex and breathe once more than necessary, you write a different line in the archive. Each time you speak the sentence that serves the future rather than the past, you reinforce the channel where energy will flow next time without so much effort. What you practice in private becomes the weather of your presence, and presence is the quiet transmitter that reorganizes conversations, opportunities, and even the way your own memories are indexed. There is a humility in this. You are not commanding the cosmos, you are entering partnership with the lawful tendencies of complex systems. You are shaping signal-to-noise ratios, probability distributions, and readiness states. You are inviting your biology to become congruent with your story so that the story has weight. You are giving other people the data they need to trust the pattern you are establishing. The more consistent the data, the stronger the inference others make, and the more the shared field, family, team, community, shifts to accommodate the trajectory you are carrying. The universe listens by being lawful, you speak by becoming consistent. Tonight, when you look up, consider that starlight is ancient memory arriving on time. Photons travel unhurried, bearing news from epochs when you did not yet exist, and yet your retina, your cortex, your meaning maker, receives and translates them into a feeling that you belong to something vast. Let your inner signals be like that, coherent, persistent, generous in their clarity. Let your thoughts be crafted with the same patience as starlight, launched faithfully, carried by rhythm, arriving with enough integrity that the world cannot help but register them. And when tomorrow writes itself, let it find you already practicing the sentence you wish it to remember. The brain is a prediction engine, and predictions are blueprints for action. When those blueprints repeat under strong emotion, they become policies your nervous system runs by default. At night, the hippocampus replays recent experience and, if tagged as important, hands it to the cortex for long-term storage. Waking practice and sleeping consolidation are the two strokes of the same oar. When you rehearse a new pattern by day and rest deeply by night, the archive updates faster. This is not metaphysical bookkeeping, it is the physics of energy and information in tissues that learn. Your attention is a budget, glucose is the currency, and focus is allocation. Spend enough of that budget on the same inner movie, paired with breath that steadies and posture that signals safety, and the policy updates. Spend it on alarms and the alarms grow louder. In this sense, your thoughts are not private, they are upstream of what your face broadcasts, what your voice carries, what your choices plant. The field remembers because your world echoes you back. Identity is a compression algorithm. The brain compacts vast experience into a handful of assumptions about what is likely next. Old assumptions hoard probability mass, making the same outcomes feel inevitable. To shift them, you do not argue, you feed the model new data until the old priors become too expensive to maintain. This is why brief moments of high-quality experience can outweigh hours of mediocre repetition. A single interaction where you embodied the future state, calm, clear, creative, becomes an exemplar. Store it richly. Attach sensory detail to it. Name it with a sentence that fits in your mouth. Revisit it while breathing at a slow, even cadence so the autonomic system marks it as safe. The exemplar turns into a reference track inside the noise, and next time you approach the junction where the old policy would fire, recognition buys you a microsecond. In that microsecond you pivot. Pivot again and again and the attractor landscape tilts, the marble finds a new basin. Emotion is not the enemy of reason, it is the tag that tells your biology what to learn. Gratitude is not merely polite, it's a state that widens the window of learning and resilience. Awe is not indulgent, it's the experience of a prediction error so positive that it loosens rigid models without panic. Combine either with a clear intention and you get metaplasticity, a setting in which circuits become easier to tune. Protect this setting with signal hygiene, fewer jolts of novelty that leave no trace, more depth with fewer inputs, less doom scrolling that trains hypervigilance, more deliberate exposure to signals that model the future you are installing. Short rituals matter because they are repeatable, a 2-minute coherence breath before each conversation, a single-line journaling the state you practiced and where it held, a brief visualization that ends with a physical anchor, hand on heart, jaw unhooked, gaze soft. Consistency beats intensity because biology values reliability over drama. The body is a broadcasting tower. Tilt the head a degree, open the chest a centimeter, release the microtension around the eyes, and the message your face sends to others, and back to your own brain, shifts. Your voice carries the spectral fingerprint of your inner weather. Slow the exhale and your prosody warms, and warmed prosody changes how people respond, which changes what options are presented to you, which reinforces the very state that created them. This is how thoughts write to the field, through loops that couple physiology, language, and environment. Even your digital traces are part of the field, posts, texts, small artifacts traveling at light speed, each carrying state. The cleaner the state, the clearer the artifact. The clearer the artifact, the easier it is for opportunities to recognize you. Design your surroundings as if they were part of your nervous system, because they are. Put friction in front of habits that rehearse the past and remove friction from those that instantiate the future. Preload choices, water visible, not behind a cabinet, walking shoes by the door, one click between you and the practice that stabilizes your signal, many clicks between you and the stimuli that scatter it. Give your future self gifts, a prepared sentence for a difficult call, a calendar alert that says, practice the new tone, a space left uncluttered so your morning starts with room. Small architecture produces large invariance, the field of cues becomes a map you can follow even when mood is low. Your brain loves to close loops, leverage that. Begin something small you can finish every day, 10 conscious breaths, a page of writing, a brief rehearsal of tomorrow's scene, and let the closure stamp the day as complete. When a trigger arrives, do not wrestle it, create a refractory period in which the old behavior is disallowed. 30 seconds is enough time to save the archive from another page of yesterday. In those 30 seconds, breathe, soften the tongue, widen the peripheral vision, and ask the body to show you one micro-action aligned with the new policy. Celebrate its completion quietly. Quiet celebration teaches the system that progress can be safe, not only dramatic. Skepticism remains welcome, because skepticism guards the gate from superstition and keeps your practice honest. You need not invoke exotic physics to justify the potency of consistent inner work. Neural ensembles that fire together wire together, autonomic balance shifts inflammatory tone, words direct attention and attention directs learning, communities entrain to the signals their members emit, environments return what is rehearsed within them. Call this quantum memory, poetically if you like, but let the operational truth be simple: information persists in patterns, and you are a patterning creature. When you choose the pattern with care, repetition turns it into reality's default setting. And still, there is room for wonder. When you become quiet enough to sense your own baseline, silence stops being absence and reveals itself as a carrier wave on which thoughts ride. In that silence, the next right sentence arrives with less strain, the next right move feels less like ambition and more like alignment. You do not command the cosmos, you coordinate with it. You let starlight, the most patient signal in existence, remind you that coherence plus time equals arrival. So you craft a signal worthy of the distance it must travel, steady, generous, specific. You launch it again tomorrow and the next day, knowing that fields, tissues, and people are listening in the only way they can, by updating their probabilities in response to what you consistently are. You can treat each morning as a tuning ritual for the instrument you live inside. Before the world's noise arrives, let your breath set the tempo, an even cycle that teaches your heart to vary smoothly and hands your cortex a stable platform. From that platform you choose a single line of intention, not a paragraph, one sentence with edges you can feel, a sentence that could fit on a doorframe. Then you rehearse one scene from the day that would prove the sentence true, the way you enter a conversation, the tone of your reply to a message, the posture of your body when you open the difficult file. Imagination plus physiology writes a draft, life will edit, but the draft gives it something wise to edit toward. The point is not to force outcomes, it is to become a low-noise transmitter so the signals you send are clear enough that other systems, people, tools, environments, can lock onto them. Memory is not only backward-looking, it is also a forecast system that preloads readiness. When you picture the future with sensory fidelity, your motor system lays out the path like runway lights. The basal ganglia learn the rhythm of what success feels like and start offering the next step faster. That faster is the hidden magic. It reduces friction at the exact moments where you used to stall, and a life is mostly the sum of frictions and flows. If an old loop tries to claim the wheel, you don't shame it, you give it a job. Thank you for your warning, now watch me breathe, and return to the reference track you installed earlier. Over days, the warning quiets because biology trusts what is repeated and safe more than what is loud. There is a craftsmanship to language that turns thoughts into tools. Verbs matter because they imply agency, nouns matter because they anchor abstractions to things you can touch. Swap, I am overwhelmed, for, my system is processing a lot, I can prioritize one next action, and you hand your prefrontal cortex a lever. The lever moves a gram at a time, but grams compound. Precision of speech sharpens prediction, sharpened prediction reduces anxiety, reduced anxiety frees bandwidth for creativity. In this way a sentence becomes an actuator in a living machine, and the field, your social world, your digital world, your physical surroundings, receives cleaner commands. You will occasionally meet the day misaligned. Good. Repair is part of the design. Use micro-resets, feel the soles of your feet, relax the tongue from the roof of the mouth, widen peripheral vision as if you were looking at the horizon. These tiny shifts change brainstem settings and tell the midbrain to stand down, they buy you the precious second in which a different choice can be installed. Pair the reset with a small win you can complete in under 2 minutes, clear the table, send the honest note, drink the glass of water. Completion signals safety, and safety is the cradle of learning. The archive updates not only when you triumph but when you repair quickly after wobble. The nervous system loves evidence that stability is recoverable. Your relationships are mirrors that help the universe remember you. People learn your probabilities, how you tend to respond, which promises you keep, where your edges soften. Each consistent act updates their internal model of you, and their updated model reshapes the opportunities they bring your way. This is not manipulation, it is mutual calibration. Enter the room carrying the configuration you wish to be known for: curiosity before certainty, listening before broadcasting, and watch how the room returns it. The feedback loop is the field at work, information bouncing between nodes until a shared pattern stabilizes. Become a reliable source of coherence and you will be entrusted with increasingly coherent problems, which are the ones worth solving. Let your environment conspire with you. Put visual anchors where your eyes naturally land, a single phrase above your workspace, a calming image placed at the end of your habitual gaze line, the future you're practicing as a symbol on your lock screen. Reduce decision points by batching. Choose your workout the night before, pre-write the first sentence of tomorrow's email, lay out the tool you'll need for the first task. Each removed micro-choice preserves glucose for the choices that matter. Design in ramps, low steps that invite action rather than cliffs that demand heroics, because systems prefer continuity over leaps. In a month you won't remember each ramp, only that your days slide more often than they scrape. When doubt arrives, and it should, treat it as a request for data. Offer data. Track 1 or 2 signals that indicate that the practice is doing work: sleep quality, time to recovery after stress, number of meaningful conversations per week, minutes spent in deep work without switching. Do not track too many, data should illuminate, not dominate. Share a small measure with a trusted person and let accountability become social gravity. Gravity is the most patient force in the universe, it never hurries and always wins. Build practices that feel like gravity, gentle, constant, cumulative. There is a quiet dignity in making your inner state your primary craft. Not because the world will bow to it on command, but because the probabilities it shapes are real. A steady inner metronome makes you easier to coordinate with, a precise vocabulary makes you easier to understand, a body that returns to balance more quickly makes you safer to be around. Safety, clarity, and steadiness are invitations, invitations are leverage. With them, doors open that remained invisible when your signal was noisy. In hindsight, the path will look like fate. Up close, it was breath, posture, sentences, and 100 small rehearsals that taught the field what to expect from you. At night, close the loop with gratitude disciplined enough to be specific. Not, "I'm grateful for everything," but "I am grateful for the way my voice softened in that conversation, for the 3 minutes I stayed with the work before checking a screen, for the moment I chose curiosity instead of a practice defense." Specificity tags the memory trace so the hippocampus knows what to keep. Sleep then becomes a librarian, filing the exact entries you want tomorrow to reference. You wake inside a story that fits more comfortably, because you wrote it with the kind of ink that doesn't smear. And when you look up at the sky, old light arriving from events long finished, remember that your signals travel too. They cross rooms and networks, they shape bodies and calendars, they become artifacts that outlast the moods that birthed them. So craft them as if they deserved the distance: coherent, generous, accurate, patient. The universe is a lawful archive. Give it patterns worth keeping, and you will find yourself living inside the memory you chose to make. There is a moment, often just after a good breath, when perception widens enough to reveal choices that were invisible at smaller apertures, and that moment is where you teach the archive who you are becoming. The Bayesian brain updates its priors in proportion to evidence, and you are the steward of the evidence you present, so you manufacture honest samples of the future: 10 seconds of clear speech, 1 minute of focused work, a single generous reply, until the statistics favor your next self. Predictive coding says the brain minimizes surprise by either changing the world to fit its model or changing the model to fit the world. Intention with practice is the art of doing both, gently, day after day, lowering the free energy of your life by aligning belief, behavior, and environment. Hebbian plasticity lays the tracks, homeostatic plasticity prevents runaway loops, and metaplasticity adjusts the rules of learning themselves, which means state is scaffolding, the calmer and more coherent the state, the easier it becomes to install a new pattern with fewer reps. You are not forcing destiny, you are engineering conditions under which the right thing becomes the easy thing. Think of coherence as bandwidth. When breath, heart, and cortex fall into an efficient rhythm, theta-gamma coupling improves feature binding, the prefrontal cortex recovers governance, and interoceptive noise drops enough that signals can cross the system without getting garbled. In that clarity, a single sentence lands with the weight of a paragraph, and a single gesture communicates what used to take a performance. The social nervous system notices, faces read faces with millisecond precision, voices entrain, mirror neurons draft a shared plan in real time. The field is not far away, it is the coupling between systems, human, digital, architectural, each updating against the other's outputs. Your repeatable signal becomes a small constant those systems can rely on, and constants anchor dynamics. Identity change begins microphysically. The next time an old reflex rises, acknowledge it as a loyal but outdated policy and offer your body a wiser micro-instruction. Relax the jaw, lengthen the exhale, widen the peripheral gaze, soften the hands. These tiny toggles flip brainstem settings from threat to approach and buy the cognitive room in which language can do its work. Then apply language like a toolmaker, precise and concrete. I return to the task for 2 minutes, I ask one clear question before offering an opinion, I place my shoulders over my hips before speaking. Small verbs, repeated often, accumulate into traits. Traits alter the opportunities you are offered. Opportunities train the next layer of identity. The archive updates on schedule. Design is compassion for future you. Hide the cues that light up yesterday's loops and exhibit the cues that invite tomorrow's. Pin a single phrase where your eyes rest when you're tired. Pre-write the opening line of the email you've been postponing and leave it in the runway of your morning. Place a glass of water where your hand lands when you reach for your phone, so hydration precedes distraction by a second and sets a different tone. Put a reminder not to multitask on the tab you most often use to escape work. Each nudge is a slope rather than a wall, and nervous systems prefer slopes. The sum of slopes is a path that feels like grace. Skepticism will whisper that inner work is indulgent while the world burns, but the world is a network of nervous systems reacting to each other's noise. Each instance of reduced reactivity is not private virtue but public infrastructure. High vagal tone shortens arguments, clear attention lowers error rates, consistent follow-through raises trust. These are civic contributions disguised as personal habits. If you want a practical definition of energy, call it the capacity to do work without unnecessary waste. Coherence reduces waste. If you want a practical definition of vibration, call it the frequency content of your signals, voice, posture, timing, optimized so they carry meaning without distortion. Physics enough, poetry included. Keep an audit that favors reality over self-critique. Track what you can measure without obsession, minutes of uninterrupted focus, time to recovery after a spike of stress, the number of conversations per week that felt generative, sleep regularity across 7 days, the ratio of inputs to outputs in your digital life. Let the metrics be lanterns, not shackles. Notice which rituals produce outsized returns, often the smallest ones. 3 cycles of coherent breathing before you open a message, 1 written line to name the state you intend to practice, a 90-second visualization that ends with a physical anchor. When a ritual works, standardize it. Systems love reliability, reliability compounds. Memory is state-dependent. Teach your body to learn the right things by pairing them with safety and meaning. When you install a new pattern, wrap it in sensory detail and gratitude so the hippocampus flags it for consolidation. The texture of the desk under your palms when you chose curiosity over defense, the warmth in your chest after you sent the clean apology, the quiet in your head when you ignored one lure to multitask. Fall asleep with 3 specifics and let slow wave sleep and spindles do what they evolved to do, stabilize traces you'll want tomorrow. Night becomes a silent partner in your project. There is no need to posture as invulnerable. Robust systems do not avoid perturbation, they use perturbation to get stronger. Each time emotion surges, you have a lab in which to practice safe discharge. Breathe low and even, name the sensation without a story, move the body in place, shoulder rolls, jaw release, a brief walk, and then choose a single constructive action. The act completes the loop, returning agency to the system. Agency is the antidote to helplessness, and helplessness is the soil in which worst-case fantasies breed. You are not eliminating storms, you are building a keel. Treat attention like a cathedral where silence is not emptiness but resonance. The mind will throw old headlines across the nave, let them pass like birds and return to the altar of breath. From that quiet, imagine a future scene with the fidelity of an artisan, the light in the room, the texture of your voice, the sensation in your spine when you stand, the pace at which you speak, the way you end the meeting with one clean sentence that leaves no residue. This level of rehearsal reduces prediction error, and reduced error feels like confidence. Confidence is not bluster, it is familiarity with what used to frighten you. When you share the signal, share it cleanly. Speak less often but more exactly. Write fewer messages but make each a vehicle for clarity. Offer praise that names behaviors, not just outcomes, so others can reuse the pattern. Ask questions that open space rather than collapse it. The field updates through communication loops. A single well-placed question can shift the trajectory of a group more than a dozen speeches. If leadership is a frequency, tune to the one that makes other instruments harmonize rather than fall silent. Finally, grant yourself the patience you would grant a galaxy forming, because your reconfiguration is smaller only in scale, not in law. Spiral arms are laid down by repeated rotations, bars emerge from consistent asymmetries, star nurseries require the right density, temperature, and time. You are arranging density, of practice, temperature, of emotion, and time, of repetition, so a new structure can appear. It will look, in hindsight, inevitable. Up close, it will feel like breath, attention, honest sentences, small completions, and the disciplined kindness of starting again tomorrow. The universe keeps exquisite records. Let your daily signal be the kind of entry the archive is proud to preserve. When memory reconsolidates, there is a brief softness where yesterday's wiring can be updated by today's insight. Catch that softness by reflecting soon after a meaningful moment and reimagining it with the posture, breath, and wording you wish you had used, and the brain saves the edited scene as if it were the original, so your future reflex now has a better template to grab. This is not self-deception but responsible authorship of a living archive. Curiosity is the solvent that loosens rigid models without dissolving your center. Ask one honest question in the heat of habit: what else could this mean? And you open a lateral path where before there was only forward or fight. Precision of attention is the chisel. You do not need to smash the stone of an old pattern, you just need to strike the right place, at the right angle, with steady rhythm, until a new contour appears that was always waiting beneath the surface. The brain loves rhythm because rhythm lowers computational cost. Let breath and routine carry the load, so willpower is reserved for the single moment that actually requires it. If you want the field to keep the imprint of your best work, embed it in acts that serve beyond yourself. Generosity is a stabilizer because it creates external copies of the state you practiced. Someone else's nervous system becomes a mirror that reflects your signal back to you with interest. The ecology of your day matters. Light in the morning that tells your clock it is time to be awake, darkness at night that lets melatonin speak, movement that shakes off latent threat signals, stillness that tells the amygdala there is no predator in the room. None of this is glamorous, all of it is compounding. When you move with a coherent cadence, the world becomes legible at finer resolution. Legibility is power because you make fewer false alarms and spot more genuine openings. Openings appear to the system that is ready to act without flinch, and readiness is what you've been rehearsing. Treat language like software updates for your predictive engine. I am practicing, patches perfectionism, for now opens the door to iteration. What would make this 2% better? Shrinks problems to solvable scale. Keep a lexicon of states you can actually embody. Steady, warm, clear, honest, and choose one each day. Abstract virtues become physical when you assign them to breath pace, eye softness, shoulder alignment, and word choice. You are teaching signal paths to find each other with less friction. Even your silence speaks. When you refrain from adding noise, you amplify what matters, and the field records the absence of clutter as faithfully as it records action. Subtraction is design. The archive values elegance. When conflict arrives, step out of the courtroom and into the lab. Replace accusation with instrumentation. What was the trigger? What was the body's first move? What sentence tried to escape your mouth? What alternative could you install next time? This is not coldness, it is care. Precision protects relationship because it keeps blame from smearing across the whole person. You can love fiercely while debugging honestly. In a world of runaway reactivity, the person who can slow the loop by a breath becomes a quiet axis around which better outcomes can rotate. The axis does not demand attention, it affords stability. Stability is remembered. Let awe be practical. Look at a tree and note the engineering: columns distributing load, leaves computing light, roots solving for water. Look at the night and note the math: orbits maintaining peace through repetition, resonance locking systems into cooperation, gravity curving paths without shouting. Translate that into your day: repetition that feels like ritual, resonance that chooses partners and projects that harmonize, gentle forces that guide without coercion. You are allowed to be subtle. Subtlety is how long projects survive. There will be days when nothing seems to move. That is part of movement. Orbits include aphelion. On such days you maintain baseline, protect sleep, simplify inputs, keep promises small and kept. Maintenance is not mediocrity, it is stewardship that prevents the archive from corrupting. When the surge returns, you will have a clean platform to build on, not a tangle of neglected threads. Trust lagging indicators: sleep quality, depth of attention, warm honesty in conversation, over leading metrics that bounce with mood. The field respects patience because patience sends consistent packets. Remember that attention is embodied. Look far, and the nervous system maps possibility. Stare near and narrow too long, and the world shrinks to the size of your problem. Use horizon gazing to reset, a minute at a window or sky between tasks. Let peripheral vision soften threat bias, then come back to the task with a system less hungry for alarms. Pair difficult work with a microdose of beauty, texture, fragrance, a phrase worth keeping, so the body doesn't learn to fear the very place where you create. Beauty is not decoration, it is compliance with how biology learns best. If you want a single test of alignment, ask whether your inner narrator would be safe to hand to a friend. If not, reframe with accuracy and kindness until it is fit for sharing. Your body hears everything your mind says, and trust is built or broken there first. Keep a few sentences pre-forged for the moments that wobble you. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Stay with the breath and do the next honest thing. One clean sentence is better than 5 clever ones. Tools you can reach under stress are the only tools that count. Let your future be specific enough to rehearse and flexible enough to survive contact with reality. You do not need the whole plan, you need the next truthful action and the state in which to take it. Take it, then listen. Feedback is not judgment, it is navigation. If you feel lost, measure less and listen more. What did your body learn today that your plans did not predict? Adjust, reinstall, repeat. This is how rockets reach orbit, small burns at the right time. This is how galaxies hold shape, steady forces over great durations. This is how a person becomes their intention, signals made coherent, then made consistent, then made available to others. And when you doubt again, step outside and look up. Those photons crossing unimaginable distance are proof that signals, launched with integrity and carried by lawful mediums, arrive. You are launching signals every day, through breath, voice, posture, choices, and the mediums are just as lawful: nervous systems, relationships, technologies, rooms. Craft the signal with care. Send it often enough that even on your tired days it carries. Let it be simple enough to remember under pressure and generous enough that others improve by receiving it. One day you will wake inside a life that feels like a clean answer to a question you started asking long ago, and you will recognize it not because it is dramatic, but because it is coherent. Treat your day like a series of learning windows and recovery windows, because the brain trains in pulses. Ride a 60 to 90-minute wave of focus, then clear the slate with 3 minutes of slow walking and wide-angle vision so the next imprint has clean space to land. Tag important moments with a small physical cue, touching thumb to forefinger, a quiet exhale through the nose, so the state becomes retrievable on command. You are building handles for your future self to grab when the room gets noisy. When you meet novelty, let curiosity lead long enough for dopamine to mark the experience as worth keeping, then stabilize it with one concrete behavior so it doesn't evaporate as mere stimulation. Attention is not a spotlight you hold forever, it is a lighthouse that sweeps, illuminates, and returns on schedule. You can bias the archive by managing error signals kindly. If a project wobbles, perform a 1-minute post-mortem while the traces are still soft. What cue did I miss? What body sensation warned me first? What microaction would have shifted probability? Save the answer as a sentence that begins with a verb you can do under pressure. Then rehearse it once with breath so the correction binds. This is error correction, not self-attack. The immune system of your identity strengthens when fixes are quick and specific. The body loves rhythms it can trust. Wake into light, move enough to nudge metabolism, take your deepest work before noon if you can, protect one ultradian cycle for undisturbed focus, let the afternoon host collaborative thinking, and allow dusk to soften input so sleep has room to do its archival work. None of this is rigid dogma, it is scaffolding that keeps your message consistent across days. Consistency lets collaborators, tools, and even your own subroutines predict you, and prediction is how coordination becomes effortless. Internal signals are easier to install when you pair them with external artifacts. Leave yourself small, legible traces, a sticky note with the next verb, a checklist that ends with closed loops, a document template that begins with the sentence you want to live inside. Tools are cognitive prosthetics, they extend memory beyond the skull. When your environment repeats your intention back to you, you spend less willpower and more time in execution, and the field, colleagues, systems, spaces, learns your frequency by exposure. Identity change accelerates when you make promises that are both visible and humane. Share a narrow commitment with one person you trust. I will send one clean paragraph by 11, I will decline one misaligned request today, I will practice coherent breathing before the tough call. Visibility turns air into structure. Humane scope keeps the signal repeatable. Repeatable signals are the ones the world can integrate. Keep a library of exemplars that match your future tone, 2 minutes of a talk where the cadence is calm and exact, a page whose clarity makes you breathe easier, a negotiation that lands without residue. Revisit an exemplar before you create, let your nervous system borrow the pattern. This is not imitation, it is tuning. Musicians do this without apology because instruments drift, your instrument drifts too. When the old narrative surfaces, too late, not ready, who am I to, do not debate it, update the inputs it depends on. Feed the system recent data that contradicts the story, the message you sent when your voice stayed warm, the task you completed on time, the moment you listened longer than your pride preferred. The brain discounts claims without evidence, give it evidence. Over time, the prior dissolves not from force but from starvation. Let your craft include recovery so gains consolidate instead of fraying. Sleep regularity outranks sleep perfection, go to bed and rise within the same window and watch mood stabilize. Take short daylight breaks so your circadian clock knows where it is. Avoid teaching your body that your desk equals threat by pairing difficult work with one cue of safety, fragrance you love, a brief stretch, a view of sky. You are not coddling yourself, you are optimizing the conditions under which plasticity pays off. If you want your signal to propagate, design for transmission loss. Speak in sentences that survive retelling, write in paragraphs that keep meaning when excerpted, name ideas so they travel without you. The field remembers what can be repeated. Precision that is easy to share becomes culture, and culture is a memory device larger than any single mind. In conflict, treat dignity as a non-negotiable boundary condition. Begin by naming what is true without ornament. Here is the effect, here is the cost, here is my request, and let your physiology do the rest. Slow exhale, steady gaze, shoulders stacked, jaw released. Your body carries metadata that words cannot. When the metadata says safety, ideas can move without armor. Agreements reached in safety stick, the archive trusts them. Keep a practice of tiny public artifacts, not to perform, but to lay breadcrumbs, a concise summary after a meeting, a clear commit message, a short note of thanks naming the behavior you value. These objects outlast mood. They make it easy for others to coordinate with you tomorrow, and for you to coordinate with yourself. In a networked world, this is how your interior coherence becomes shared infrastructure. When momentum lags, shrink the unit of progress until it moves again. One sentence, not a page. 5 lines of code, not a module. 10 mindful breaths, not a perfect meditation. Momentum generates its own chemistry, success tastes like possible, and possible is the only fuel you ever needed. You are not building a monument, you are laying track, and trains run on track, not on hopes. Finally, keep wonder in the loop, not as decoration but as function. Awe resets perspective, widens priors, and makes room for solutions that do not fit the cramped models of a stressed mind. Step under a wide sky, listen to a piece of music that humbles you, read a paragraph that survived a century. Let your nervous system remember it belongs to something vast and lawful. Then return to your next action with a steadier hand. Signals launched from that steadiness travel farther and arrive clearer, and the field, this lawful, living archive, will record them faithfully because you made them easy to keep. Treat the future like a gradient you can climb rather than a cliff you must leap, and shape that gradient with ratios you can keep, more creation than consumption before noon, more listening than broadcasting in your first conversation, more single-task time than context switches across the day. Ratios are kinder than rules because they flex, they also leave fingerprints the archive can actually track. Build keystone moments that anchor these ratios: first light, first work block, first meal, first conversation, first pause at dusk, and treat them as tuning forks. If a day derails, retune at the next keystone rather than waiting for a perfect tomorrow. Systems that recover quickly outperform systems that never err. Exploration and exploitation are not enemies. Dedicate a small, non-negotiable slice to novelty so your model stays supple, then pour the rest into depth so your signal gains authority. Novelty prevents ruts, depth creates gravity. Train interoception gently so your body becomes a trustworthy dashboard. Name sensations without diagnosis: pressure, warmth, buzz, hollowness. Then ask what simple adjustment reduces noise: slower exhale, longer posture, wider gaze, water, a short walk. The brain treats unlabeled sensation as threat, labeled sensation becomes data. With practice you learn the difference between productive stretch and costly strain, and you stop confusing adrenaline for clarity. On days when the inner weather is stormy, set a good enough target and close the loop. Done politely today beats perfect someday. On days when the weather is bright, ask a better question and reach an inch further. Inches compound. Use endings as editors. End a meeting with one sentence that names the decision and the next action. End a work block by writing the first line you'll need tomorrow. End a conversation by appreciating a specific behavior so it's more likely to recur. End the day by tagging 3 micromoments worth keeping so sleep can consolidate the right traces. Clean endings reduce cognitive drag and lower the energy required to re-enter. Friction is the hidden tax on your future. Lower it where it matters and you will feel like you've been given time. Let your voice be part of the practice. Prosody, the music of speech, carries state faster than content. Before a call, breathe low for 30 seconds and read one clean sentence aloud, aiming for steady pace and warm edges. People respond to the music first. When the music says safety, ideas can travel farther. Pair this with eyes that include the periphery, A narrow gaze tells the midbrain to hunt, a soft gaze tells it to learn. When you're tempted to power through fatigue, check these two signals, voice and eyes, and if both have gone sharp, step back for 2 minutes and reset. The quality of your next hour depends on that pause. Guard attention by designing default paths kinder than your impulses. If scrolling is the reflex between tasks, put a book you actually enjoy where your phone rests, and move the phone out of reach. If procrastination wears the mask of research, write the question first, set a 5-minute limit, and return with 1 sentence of answer. If email pulls you into reactive loops, schedule 2 short windows and let an autoresponder set expectations that protect your deep work. Your environment is an invisible collaborator, either for your past or your future. Recruit it. When you feel small against the scale of your aims, trade scale for specificity. Ask for the smallest proof that your system is working. 1 sentence written without flinch, 1 answer delivered with kindness under heat, 1 boundary held without drama. Proof is more persuasive than pep talks because biology trusts evidence. Store each proof as a compact story with sensory detail and a verb. Replaying these stories before hard moments primes the brain to choose the newer path. This is not fantasy, it is rehearsal that lowers prediction error. Treat conflict as a forge for coherence. In the moment, reduce speed and increase clarity, name the effect, the cost, and the request in plain language. Let your body signal calm, shoulders stacked, jaw loose, breath slow. Ask the other person to restate what they heard, then restate what you heard. The loop is the unit of change. Afterward, perform a brief autopsy while traces are fresh and write 1 sentence you'll use next time. Without this capture, the archive defaults to the old policy. With it, the policy updates. Remember that entropy increases unless you invest energy in structure. Your practices are that investment. But the energy need not be heroic. It can be the energy of rhythm, breath that keeps time, light that starts clocks, sleep that shelves books, sentences that carry weight, artifacts that survive misinterpretation, gestures that calm the room. Over months, rhythms write architecture. Architecture writes identity. Identity writes probability. And when you forget, because you will, begin again without ceremony. 1 slow breath, 1 honest sentence, 1 aligned action. The universe is not grading you, it is integrating signals. Send a clean one now. Treat resilience as a choreography you rehearse before you need it, so when pressure arrives the moves are already in your muscles. You breathe low, you widen your gaze, you choose 1 clear verb, you deliver it, and the loop closes without leaving residue. The archive notices loops that close cleanly. Over time, life starts offering you puzzles that fit your rhythm because you keep demonstrating a rhythm that finishes what it starts. This is how purpose stops being an idea and becomes a probability, not through declarations, but through 1,000 executed microphrases that tell the world, and your own biology, what you're built to handle. Let boredom be a diagnostic, not a verdict. Often it means the challenge to skill ratio has drifted. Raise the challenge a notch or lower the complexity until flow becomes reachable again. Flow is the nervous system's way of saying, the model and the moment are aligned. You don't chase it, you configure for it, fewer interruptions, a clear boundary around the next unit of work, a quick ritual that says, now, and a defined end. Rituals are how brains find doorways in ordinary rooms. A sip of water placed at the left, a single line read aloud, a glance at the horizon, a slow exhale, and the session starts. Repeat that doorway enough times and the body walks through it without negotiation. Remember that your future reputation is being minted in small, untheatrical exchanges. The reply that removes ambiguity instead of spreading it, the timeline you adjust early instead of apologizing late, the honest no that protects a better yes, the quiet documentation that lets someone else continue when you step away. These are the breadcrumbs that let colleagues, friends, and even your later self navigate the terrain you've shaped. The field is full of lost threads, be the person who leaves threads tied. Tied threads become trust, and trust is the social version of low entropy. Treat your devices like rooms you curate. Arrange them so the first thing you see is a cue for creation, not consumption. Pin the document you intend to build, archive the apps that siphon your morning signal, let the lock screen carry a single phrase that names the state you're practicing. Information systems are attention fields, configure yours as if it were a studio where sound carries cleanly. What you hear first changes what you make next. The archive is listening. When fear spikes, precision shrinks the monster. Name the smallest verifiable next step, prepare the first sentence you will say when the moment arrives, and run a 30-second preview with breath slow enough to teach the heart you are safe. Fear is a forecast, give it updated weather. If it returns, treat it as a stakeholder with data to share, not a tyrant with orders. Ask what boundary needs drawing, what preparation needs finishing, what conversation needs starting. Then move an inch. The inch is the hinge. Let movement carry meanings your words can't. A brisk walk before difficult work changes catecholamine tone, a set of light squats or a wall push-up resets the body's map of ready, a stretch that opens the chest tells the midbrain you're not cornered. You are not only a thinker, you are a moving electric ecology, and motion edits mood faster than argument. Pair motion with one sentence of intention and the nervous system binds them. Next time, the posture will summon the sentence on its own. Build a tiny apprenticeship with wonder. Keep a short list of phenomena that never fail to widen you: night air on the face, the quiet geometry of leaves, a paragraph that survived generations, a piece of music that feels carved from truth. Use one on purpose when you feel the tunnel closing. Awe is not an escape, it is a recalibration that restores dynamic range so your models can update without panic. Wide systems make better maps. Practice endings that vote for who you're becoming. Close a document by writing the next line in brackets so your future self lands running. End a meeting by asking each person for a single sentence they will act on and when. End your day by naming 3 specific moments worth keeping and 1 friction you will lower tomorrow. Consistency at the edges compresses the startup cost of everything you care about. Compression is kindness to the future. Treat mistakes as raw material for craftsmanship. Capture 1 sentence, trigger, first body signal, old move, new move. Rehearse the new move 1 time with breath. Then file it where you will see it again, on the tool you use, at the doorway you cross, in the script you follow. You're not mining shame, you're mining instruction. Talent is a myth that hides process. Process is a quiet stack of well-placed sentences that survived friction. When speaking, honor the physics of attention. Lead with the point in 1 clear line, offer only the context that keeps it stable, and ask a question that checks whether the signal landed. Your voice carries more than content, it carries timing, sincerity, and room for the other. When your cadence says, there is time, mine's open, when it says, choose now, mine's narrow, both have their place, and craft is knowing which frequency the moment needs. Treat time like terrain with weather. Some hours are summer fields, some are winter roads. Align heavy lifts with bright weather when possible, and when not, scale the load to what the road can carry. It is not weakness to respect conditions, it is strategy. Pilots do not argue with clouds. They navigate, they file alternate plans, they land safely and try again tomorrow. Safety is not small, it is how long work happens. Finally, remember that your signal is already traveling. The text you send carries state, the code you push carries care, the way you enter a room carries permission. You cannot control how far these signals go, only how cleanly they launch. So refine the launcher, breath steady, gaze kind, spine aligned, language exact, intentions lived in small, repeatable ways. The universe keeps memory as pattern. Lay down a pattern that future you would be proud to inherit, and let the lawful archive do the rest. Treat attention like a lens you can refocus in seconds, not a brittle resource that shatters when jostled. Blink slowly, lengthen the exhale, widen your gaze for 10 heartbeats, and the nervous system lifts out of tunnel mode so the next choice becomes visible. Run your day on small invariants that survive chaos. breathe before you speak, name the outcome before you act, leave a breadcrumb for your future self before you close. Invariants are quiet architecture. They keep identity continuous when circumstances wobble, and continuity is what the archive trusts. Let repetition be intelligent, not mindless. Each time you practice, alter one variable, timing, context, emotional tone, so the pattern generalizes. Brains crave variance around a stable core. Too much sameness bores plasticity, too much novelty confuses it. Aim for deliberate drift. This is how musicians build fluid skill and how you build a self that doesn't break when the venue changes. Myelin thickens around signals you send often and cleanly, give it something worth insulating. When fatigue speaks, listen early, it usually requests regulation, not retreat. A glass of water, a posture reset, 2 minutes of horizon gaze, and a single sentence that reduces ambiguity can return more energy than an hour of escape. Energy leaks through indecision and unkept loops, plug them with clarity. If you can't decide, define a time box and decide when the box ends. If you can't start, make the first motion embarrassingly small, open the file, write one blunt line, press run on the test, and let physics take over. Objects in motion keep moving, design for motion. Treat language like a scalpel that removes inflammation from thought. Say what you mean in fewer words and watch the cognitive load drop for everyone involved, including you. Remove hedges that smuggle doubt where precision belongs, replace them with honest scope. Here is what I know, here is what I'm assuming, here is what I'll check. Precision calms bodies. Calmed bodies coordinate better. Coordination, repeated, becomes reputation, and reputation is how the field routes opportunities. Engineer strategic frictions that defend what matters. If deep work is precious, make it slightly harder to reach distractions than to reach your draft. If sleep is fragile, make it slightly harder to scroll after dusk than to set the room dark and cool. Friction is not punishment, it is a slope that tilts behavior toward your future. The nervous system respects the terrain it walks on. Shape the terrain. During conflict, be a conductor of charge rather than a storage battery. Let the surge pass through grounded practices, slow exhale, loose jaw, shoulders stacked, then convert the remaining current into one clear request. Stored charge leaks later as resentment, conducted charge becomes movement now. After the conversation, write a one-sentence lesson while the neural trace is pliable, reconsolidation favors recency. You are not revising history, you are upgrading reflex. Adopt a craftsman's relationship with feedback. Ask for it with a small frame that invites specificity, one thing to keep, one thing to change, then implement a visible tweak quickly so others learn you are safe to be honest with. Safety accelerates truth. Truth accelerates learning. Learning accelerates trust. Trust is the medium where complex projects, and coherent lives, propagate. Let your body issue microcommands that your mind can follow, uncurl the toes, soften the eyes, stack the ribs over the pelvis, lengthen the exhale by one count. These toggles reprogram threat bias in seconds and return executive control without theatrics. Pair each toggle with a tiny behavior, send a clean sentence, click the one button, ask the one question, and the pairing will fuse. Next time, the posture will summon the act without debate. Curate a small pantheon of role models for specific capacities rather than for whole identities. Borrow someone's clarity for writing, someone else's warmth for listening, another's courage for boundary setting. Before you act, mentally seat the relevant mentor in the room and run your line once as if they were listening. Mirror systems respond to imagined presence. Rehearsal with reverence upgrades performance without the strain of imitation. Let or remain operational. When solutions hide, step into a larger scale, look at a satellite image, read 2 pages of history, listen to a piece of music with dynamics wider than your mood. Wide inputs widen priors. Widened priors allow hypotheses you couldn't see at narrow zoom. Return to the problem and ask a better question. The question you ask determines the path your attention walks. Close loops as an act of hygiene. End the work block by writing the first ugly line for tomorrow. End the meeting by naming who owns what by when. End the day by tagging 3 moments that modeled your future and 1 friction you'll lower next. Sleep then shelves precisely what you want reachable at dawn. Night is not dead time, it is the silent librarian of your becoming. And when doubt circles back, as it should, do not negotiate with it at the level of identity. Offer it data at the level of behavior, the minutes you stayed with the task, the breath you saved before speaking, the apology you delivered cleanly, the boundary you set without heat. Doubt respects evidence. Evidence, gathered patiently, reweights the model your brain uses to predict you. Prediction becomes policy. Policy becomes presence. Presence becomes the quiet transmitter that changes rooms, and rooms are the field in which your life is recorded. Craft the signal now, steady and specific, and let the lawful archive keep it. Treat patience like a vector, not a mood, the steady direction you keep even when the magnitude wobbles, so your actions line up across days and the archive can interpolate a clean trajectory from sparse points. A vector survives noise. You become legible to yourself. Legibility lowers the metabolic cost of choice, and lowered cost frees bandwidth for craft. Craft is where intention leaves fingerprints, the way you format a note so future you understands it at a glance, the way you breathe before you answer so meaning isn't bent by haste, the way you choose the smallest verb that would still be true and let it carry the weight. Map triggers with the curiosity of a field scientist. Each repeated wobble has a location, a time of day bias, a posture, a sentence that tries to escape your mouth. Write them once in plain ink. Name the countermove you will practice next time in 10 words or fewer. Then rehearse that countermove with breath so it binds to a state, not just a concept. You are building interrupt handlers in your nervous system, tiny routines that run when old code fires. Good handlers return control without drama. Drama is expensive, handlers are cheap. Make emotions high resolution. Replace bad with tight in the throat, heat behind the eyes, jitter in the hands, because the body can cooperate with specifics. Then give each sensation a lawful intervention, loosen the jaw for the throat, horizon gaze for the eyes, slow nasal exhale for the jitter. Interoception becomes interface. Interface becomes agency. Agency is not dominance over circumstance, it is the reliable ability to take the next honest step under any weather. Let integrity be an engineering problem. Signals degrade when they bounce through time and people. Design your words as if they must survive 3 retellings and still mean what you meant. 1 claim, 1 reason, 1 request, 1 timestamp. Design your promises as if latency will occur. Include what you will do when you're late and by what channel you'll say so. Design your boundaries as if you'll be tired. 1 sentence you can speak kindly even with low resources. When the tired version of you can still execute, you know the pattern is installed. Teach your body the feeling of starting. Make it the same every time. 1 deep breath held for a heartbeat, exhale to a soft count of 6, glance to the horizon, hands placed, first ugly line typed. Starting becomes a motor program, not a debate. Debate consumes glucose, programs run. If you stall, shrink the unit again, outline 3 bullet points, write 1 function signature, draft the subject line only. Momentum has a chemistry, you are allowed to manufacture it. Store proof like a meticulous archivist. Keep a compact ledger of real moments when you enacted the future, the clean no, the gentle repair, the on-time deliverable, the conversation that didn't spiral. Add 1 or 2 lines of sensory detail so the hippocampus can reassemble the scene on demand. Read a few before difficult work. It is not ego-feeding, it is probability shifting. Brains change their forecasts when presented with data that rhyme. In relationships, practice latency-tolerant empathy. Assume the other nervous system is running its own error correction, do not flood the channel with extra noise. Ask 1 clarifying question that proves you heard the substance, then offer 1 sentence of your own experience without blame words. Keep your shoulders stacked, your jaw soft, your breath slow enough that your voice carries warmth. Warmth is not compliance, it is low-loss transmission. Signals wrapped in warmth arrive intact. Design for graceful failure. Build guardrails that keep mistakes small and recoverable. Timebox experiments, ship tiny increments, set review points, create templates that catch common errors. Failure then becomes feedback with a budget, not catastrophe with a myth. Budgets are civilized, myths are expensive. When a miss happens, capture the trigger and a new micro-instruction, rehearse once, and return to work. You teach the archive that wobble is safe to disclose because repair is probable. Honor cycles. Brains train in pulses, muscles recover in pulses, seasons change what circadian clocks expect. Align heavy cognitive lifts with your brightest window and reserve tasks that benefit from social energy for the hours when your voice naturally warms. Protect the hour before sleep as a sanctuary for low-noise signals, paper over pixels, gratitude over grievance, darkness over glow. Night is your quietest collaborator, treat it with respect and it will shelve your gains where you can find them. Let play be a method. Exploration without immediate utility widens priors and reduces overfitting to today's constraints. 10 minutes of free drawing, a riff on a melody, a mock interface sketched with no stakes, these are not detours, they are deliberate injections of variance so your model doesn't get brittle. Brittle systems crack under surprise, supple ones bend and store the energy. Adopt 2% better as a doctrine when ambition spikes. Big swings invite self-sabotage because biology distrusts cliffs. 2% is an incline your body will accept without panic. Ask the day's work, conversation, or practice how it could be 2% cleaner, kinder, clearer. Install the answer and stop. Stopping cleanly is the hidden skill, it teaches the system that success is safe and repeatable. Speak in verbs that cooperate with biology. Pause, breathe, ask, write, send, close, repair. Verbs are switches, flip one, the circuit flows. Nouns without verbs are static displays, they don't move the day. When you do reach for adjectives, let them be operational, steady voice, warm gaze, exact sentence. You are writing firmware for a creature that listens to rhythm more than rhetoric. Feed awe on purpose. Step under dawn sky before the first task, stand in a patch of wind and let your body remember scale, read a paragraph that survived a century. Awe dilates perception without chaos, it resets significance so trivia loses its grip. A dilated system solves problems with fewer wasted moves. Fewer wasted moves look, from the outside, like grace. Keep a small commons where your coherence helps others. A concise write-up after solving a problem, a template you share, a short note that names what worked in a meeting, these artifacts externalize your inner order so the field retains it independent of mood or presence. Culture is memory you can stand on. When you contribute to it, you belong to something larger than your swings. If you need a one-breath protocol, let it be this. Inhale through the nose as if smelling rain, hold for the beat where choice becomes visible, exhale slowly until the shoulders sink, soften the eyes to include the edges of the room, speak one sentence you would be proud to reread tomorrow. That single packet carries calm, agency, inclusion, and integrity. Sent often enough, it becomes your signature on the field. When the old broadcast returns, meet it with accuracy and kindness. Accuracy prevents denial, kindness prevents collapse. My chest is tight and my jaw is set, I am tempted to rush, I will lengthen my exhale and ask one clarifying question before I decide. Then do it once. Reality updates through enactment, not affirmation. Your biology believes what you do. Accept that uncertainty is not a bug to delete but a bandwidth to manage. Name what is known, what is assumed, what is unknown. Assign small experiments to convert one unknown to a known. Park the rest in a review list with a date. This stops uncertainty from metastasizing into dread and keeps your attention available for the part of the problem that yields. Yielding parts generate momentum, momentum changes stories. End clean. Write tomorrow's first line in brackets, return the tools to their homes, send the one thank you that will make the next collaboration smoother, choose the sentence you will sleep on. Let that sentence be simple, physical, and generous, steady breath, honest words, small finishes. Sleep will lay it into memory the way dew settles on grass, quietly, thoroughly. You will wake more recognizable to yourself. And when you step outside, let the night remind you what coherence plus time can do. Light that left its source before your name existed arrives unhurried, carrying the exact structure of the moment it was launched. Be like that with your signals. Launch them with integrity, carry them with rhythm, let them arrive with the same shape you intended, steady, clear, and kind. The universe records patterns. Offer it a pattern worth keeping, and keep offering it until probability yields.